in the book, you come right out in the introduction. You talk about an awesome night you have in the Zona Rosa, Mexico City, or the Pink Zone, for our non-Spanish speaking viewers. But in your reflection of this raucous evening where you're talking about the freedom you experience in Mexico juxtaposed with what you see as a more conservative U.S., you're interrupted by a comrade that says pretty much, yeah, you're having a good time, but tomorrow these people have to return to a toil in a bit of a hidden life. He reminds you that many people have to go back to live with their parents and work these extremely low-wage jobs. That friend then adds that most of them will succumb to family pressures to be married. That's how you start the book.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about this, because I think you said it happens in like 2006.
I tee off with the scene from the Zona Rosa. I think it must have been, I don't remember what the date stamp was I put on it actually. But I've been paying visits off and on to the Zona Rosa since probably the 1984 or something like that, right?
Okay.
And so I've had like a number of years of visits and revisits and so on. By the time I'm writing about it here, I think it must be after 2006 and before 2012, sometime in that range. The Zona Rosa was gay Disneyland. I mean, it was an amazing spectacle that unfolded every evening. And so actually the spectacle started at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and just kept going until about 3 in the morning, right?
What would you compare it to? Would you compare it to like New York in the 70s or San Francisco in the 70s? Had you been to any of those places?
Yeah, I'm old enough that I was on the scene in Greenwich Village in San Francisco in the late 70s. Mexico City was incomparably bigger and more intense and livelier and funner and yeah, I mean, you get with demographics and scale and size and all of that, you can have different effects yeah, I think the Zona Rosa. I mean, Mexican scholars have written about the Zona Rosa, of course, but it's sort of the epicenter of gay life in Mexico, and often a sharp contrast to the way most people live on a day-to-day basis.
Interesting. I mean, the way you describe it, I'm getting visions of like, what I remember as a much younger person, because I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, when we would see scenes of like the Folsom Street Fair and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm assuming it's like that, but more of a party atmosphere and probably a party everywhere.
Okay, so picture, a major gay event, maybe not Gay Pride March, but close to that, right? In San Francisco. Okay. And then picture that happening every day in the right? So literally hundreds of people start to be seen on the streets and sidewalks by mid-afternoon, and then that accelerates. So by 7 or 8 p.m., you've got thousands of people on the streets. You've got thousands more in bars and antros, and it's just a very festive, lively place.
I have to ask, and I'm not trying to be difficult by asking this question.
Sure.
So you started the book in 2006, but you said you've been going there since the 80s. What was it like in the 80s? Because you said 84, so that's kind of in the middle of AIDS. I think we're calling it AIDS by 84, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think we're calling it AIDS, but it's still the gay cancer.
Right. 1984. I write about this in a later chapter, right? Because of course, part of the story I try to relate is how I came to understand the gay scene and how I came to see it and think about it. 1984, I was studying language in Cuernavaca, took a short bus ride. It's about an hour bus ride to Mexico City. Because I had read in a scandal sheet that the Zona Rosa was the center of gay life. And I thought, well, I want to see that. Because I couldn't find it in Cuernavaca. It was invisible to me, right? I mean, I was struggling with language, of course, but even so, it was very discreet and not at all open. I went to the Zona Rosa and I wandered quaint streets named for European cities, because that's how the Zona is set up, right? Looking in vain for signs of gay life. I could not find them. I wander around. All right. So like, old timers tell me, geez, that's very strange, because by 1984, the gay scene was very lively in the Zona. And then they say, oh, I know what happened. You wandered into the Zona. You happened to visit during one of the periodic limpiezas, cleanups, cleansings, crackdowns, because the President de la Madrid's wife complained to the police that there were too many homosexuals in the Zona. And they responded by shutting everything down and cleaning it up for a few weeks before it came back. So I had probably wandered in during the limpieza. So there's a little piece of the picture, right? I mean, gay life in Mexico up until the late neoliberal period had been punctuated by a series of openings and closures and openings and closures, and let it out and then put it back in the box. And even after the neoliberal period, I mean, one of the penultimate, the final chapter in the book talks about how authorities in Mexico City and Puebla subsequently shut down the scene in the Zona Rosa again on very careful not to be homophobic or anything, on a completely different set of rationales. And of course, what neoliberalism gives with one hand, it takes away with the other. And it took back a lot of the gains. And there's an interesting political side story there, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't piece it all together. One of the important parts is that the city and private developers were trying to develop an upscale residency scene on the edge of the Zona, and they didn't want
gays.
They wanted gays, but like
the rich gays.
Discreet, well-behaved, quiet.
The petite bourgeois business owning gays.
That's what they want. They wanted. They weren't opposed to a certain kind of scene. It was the fact, though, that there was class mixing, boisterousness in the streets, and all of that. And they really undertook to shut it down. And so. The period that I write about, like early on, is when AMLO was governor of Mexico City, and it was like
he's like, let it hang,
very open.
He's a let it hang, literally and figuratively.
Let it hang. He was not had no interest in having a crackdown. When Ebrard became governor, same party, different personnel, that's when you saw crackdowns. You also saw some very serious problems with drug cartels all across
in the gay community, or just in general?
All across Mexico City, in nightclubs all across Mexico City. But there was one event that happened in one of the gay bars, and that became the pretext for shutting them all down. All right, and then that goes. You get 6 years of sort of repression. Yeah. When Claudius Scheinbaum becomes governor.
Hey. That's our future president. Hey, future president.
It opens up again, right? It opens up again, and they even christen, the new Zona Rosa. There are There are posters everywhere. The new Zona Rosa.